I'm Andrea Giles, and you're listening to the Heal from Infidelity podcast, episode number 153, Spiritual Bypassing. Hello, and welcome to the Heal from Infidelity podcast, where courageous women learn not only to heal from their spouse's betrayal, but to become the boldest, truest, most decisive, and confident versions of themselves ever. If you know there's more for you than the life you're currently living, but don't quite know how to get there, you are in the right place. Stick around to learn how to create a life that will knock your own socks off. Is it possible? It is, and I'm here to show you how. I'm your host, Andrea Giles. Are you ready? Let's dive in. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. Glad to have you all here. Today, I decided to talk about something that may feel a little bit controversial. It may feel a little bit uncomfortable. And this is coming from my commitment to you to bring to you the things that we all need to look at, the things that we need to be aware of. And if it's uncomfortable to you, I want you to just notice it. We're not judging. We're not making ourselves wrong. We're just noticing, and then look at why you might be uncomfortable. Okay? Spiritual bypassing. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of some things that I've seen recently inside my program, and then we'll talk more about exactly what spiritual bypassing is and why it can be a problem. Okay. I had somebody come recently and say that her husband has had a couple different affairs and that he has gotten really involved in a spiritual practice, and he'll go away for periods of time, like a weekend, not long periods of time, but he'll go away to be able to practice this thing that he does, and he really loves it. He says it brings him a lot of peace and that it's helping him to heal. But whenever she brings up anything about the infidelity, he completely shuts down. He says that he's dealing with it in his way by doing these different spiritual things that he's doing, and basically wants her to back off. And she's frustrated because she will feel unheard and then get more aggressive, like really wanting to talk, and then it'll turn into a conflict and he will walk away, leave. She'll feel bad about it, like it's not how she wants it to be, but she doesn't know how to get him to talk. Okay. Another example that I recently heard is that one of my clients, her spouse, has been going and getting help from a therapist, and he says that that's helping him so much and that it's making him feel better and get back in touch with himself and all of that. And that's great, but he's still completely avoiding her. He's still not talking about it. He's still not wanting to engage any more than he used to. He just says that he feels better and he wants that to be enough. Like, let's just move forward. Now, why is this a problem? Let's talk about infidelity. Infidelity is a symptom. Nothing more, nothing less. It's a symptom. It's an active, raging symptom of an underlying unresolved issue or multiple issues. If we have a wound on our body, we can cover up the wound with medicine. We can use medicine to where it almost seems like it's not there, right? It almost seems like it went away, no problem. We might even forget about it until it rears its head again. And when it does, it often is worse because the symptoms were allowed to fester under the surface, not being given what they need to actually heal. They're just given what they need to feel better temporarily. So if infidelity is a symptom, to cure it and make sure it doesn't rear its head again, it needs to be healed at its root. And the people engaging in infidelity need to be healed at their root, as well as those that are hurt by it. So in those examples above, while they might be feeling good, like taking ibuprofen when you have a sore knee, the knee injury is still there. It's not healed. It might need some kind of diagnosis, some kind of plan of healing, often some exercises that are going to strengthen it, that are going to strengthen the tissue, sometimes a knee replacement, right? There's more that needs to happen than just throwing some pills at it. It's the same around infidelity. Many well-meaning practitioners or spiritual leaders give this kind of advice. Just don't do it again. In reality, a lot of spiritual leaders and practitioners are not trained in the area of infidelity. They don't know what they're doing. I do not say that with arrogance. I say it as a matter of fact. There are many that we go to and give a lot of power to that simply do not know all of the ins and outs of infidelity and what actually needs to happen. There is no Band-Aid solution. It has to be dealt with at the root. And there are many out there that are well-meaning, but do not have the training. And sometimes they don't have the bandwidth, like the emotional bandwidth to hold all of the pieces and all the hurts, right? All the pain that comes up with infidelity. And so often they'll throw things out there like, you need to just move forward. You just need to let it go. You just need to forgive. You just need to not do that again, right? You just need to stop doing that. One little example that I have seen a lot is where pornography is an issue for some people, for many people. And when their church leaders, for example, are just saying, well, just stop, you can just stop, right? When in reality, it's a symptom. It is a symptom. So to tell them just to stop is like telling somebody who loves their Diet Coke to just stop drinking the Diet Coke. And we can go cold turkey for a while, but if we don't get to the root of why we like that Diet Coke, maybe we need a little energy boost and then figure out other things that are healthier for us that can give us an energy boost, etc. We're going to go back to the Diet Coke, right? We're going to go back to those things that we aren't solving at the root. So sometimes well-meaning practitioners, spiritual leaders will say, just stop, or just forgive, just move past it, right? But the problem with that is that it's not actually going to the root. We're bypassing the root. We're bypassing facing it head on, looking at it, really, really seeing it, talking about it, bringing ourselves and our full attention and our full mind, our full capacity to whatever it is that we're looking at. Now, some of my clients do this as well. Sometimes they want to rush to forgiveness because they don't want to face it. It feels easier to just say, okay, I forgive you, let's move on, than to actually turn around and look at the ramifications, look at the bigness, okay, for lack of better words, the large thing that's there, that there's a lot to see. And I remember doing this. I remember when I was married the first time, there was something that happened that was like a really big wake-up call. There was a chain of events that happened that I knew, like, Andrea, wake up. And even then, even when I was told this story that did not land right in my gut, I knew that there was information that I was missing. I knew it, but I did not deal with it head on because I was thinking, well, how am I going to get to the truth? How am I going to get to the root? How am I going to really understand this? So I guess I have no choice but to just kind of take his word for it and move on, even though I knew that there was far more to it. And it was the following year when the symptoms were continuing to rear their head that I had to look. I could no longer look away. And that's when I decided I needed to go. That's what happened for me when I looked really closely, is that I knew that that's what I needed to do. That is not going to be the case for many of you. Many of you do this thing where instead of looking at any of the good things, it's easier to focus on the negative. It's easier to focus on the hurt. It's easier to focus on the pain, instead of looking at all of it and looking at it as a whole, like more holistically. When we can look at it more holistically, we are going to make better decisions, right? And so we do this in various ways. We bypass in various ways. But that's one of the ways that I did. So what is happening here? Spiritual bypassing. Let's talk about what spiritual bypassing is, okay? So in preparation for this episode, I went and did a little research, okay? It says spiritual bypassing is a way of hiding behind spirituality or spiritual practices such as forgiveness, just jumping to forgiveness. It prevents people from acknowledging what they are feeling and distances them from both themselves and others. Some examples are avoiding feelings of anger. Isn't that interesting? Avoiding feelings of anger. Because sometimes we're afraid of what we will see if we lean into that anger. Believing in your own spiritual superiority as a way to hide from insecurities. Believing that traumatic events must serve as learning experiences or that there is a silver lining behind every negative experience. Okay, I want to talk about this one a little bit because as I was studying this, I'm like, well, let me check in here because what do I think about that? You hear from me all the time that my belief around infidelity is that we have to be able to see it from all the lenses. We have to be able to view it in all the lenses. Now, this does not mean that I want any of you to be like, yeah, infidelity's great. Like, what's the problem? You can just think positive. And like, no, there's some things that we want to think negatively about. There's some things we do not ever want to just be even neutral about, right? There are some things that, in my opinion, I don't want to be neutral about, like child abuse, for example. I don't want to be neutral about child abuse, right? But when I think about that concept of believing that traumatic events must serve as a learning experience, I actually do think that our way through trauma, part of our way of healing from trauma is to be able to find our strength through it, to be able to realize that we do not have to be identified by that trauma and that we can take that trauma and choose who we want to be, that we can choose what to do with it. But it's never to make the trauma itself just fine. It's more, how am I choosing to view it? How am I choosing to see it? And it is my opinion and my experience with people that I have coached that have struggled to accept coaching, okay, that have struggled in really digging in their heels that they've been wronged, that those that dig in their heels the deepest about how wrong they were and how victimized they were and how traumatic it was, they have the hardest time really choosing who they want to be moving forward. And it ultimately costs them a lot. Okay, so I think in this example, it's kind of like needing to put a positive spin on anything, such as like, you know, my kids have told me that, my bonus kids, they've told me that when their mom died, so many people would say things to them like, well, she's in a better place. She's not suffering anymore. And they just wanted their mom. They just wanted their mom. Like, how is that comforting to them? They wanted their mother. But the thing is, those people saying that were well-meaning, but that is an example of spiritual bypassing. We're not going to actually sit with this person as they profoundly grieve the loss of their mother. We're going to like put a shiny bow on it, right? And call it something good. That's an example. All right. I'm going to continue with my list here. Believing that spiritual practices such as meditation or prayer are always positive. I think that's interesting. This is just giving so much power to these things, to prayer or to meditation. I'm going to give you another example here. Somebody that I've mentioned before that I have followed for a while. His name is Corey Mascara, and Corey went through a pretty tough time in his life, and he decided to become an expert in meditation. And he took it to an extreme, and he actually went and lived with monks for 6 months up in the mountains in like Tibet. And he had no outside contact for 6 months. He had all of his meals prepared and brought to him, and he meditated for something like 16 hours a day, and then slept, and then did it again. And Corey talks about how it was really easy when he was there to feel peaceful. It was really easy for him to feel good. That at first it took a lot of concentration to shut things down and to get into a meditative state, but that once he was there, he felt really good. And he said that the real test was coming home. and being with people and being in conversation with people and being in conflict with people and just living life. That was the real test for him of, did I learn anything? And learning how to get to a meditative state in real life. And so sometimes we bypass the real stuff by taking all this time to be in prayer, to be in meditation, to be in these spiritual practices where really it's like, okay, how am I going to face my fear? From a business standpoint, sometimes if I'm trying something new or pushing myself to do something new, it's scary. It's super uncomfortable sometimes to put myself out there in ways that I never have. And sometimes I have to be onto myself and go, okay, if I'm like studying this other thing about marketing or doing this or, learning from this other person, am I avoiding doing the work? Am I avoiding doing what I actually need to do to like drive my business forward, right? And that's where self-leadership comes in. Like, what's the thing I want? Nobody's coming to do it for me. I need to do it myself. And so getting out of that bypassing place and back to work, okay? Some other examples are extremely high, often unattainable idealism. Isn't that interesting? So interesting. Feelings of detachment, focusing only on spirituality and ignoring the present, only focusing on the positive or being overly optimistic. I know people like that are just like, oh, but everything's great. And let's just not go to negative. The cup is always half full. And it can be kind of hard to be around. Like people that I know that are this way, I don't have real conversations with them because they don't really want to talk about real things. It's all like this sugar-coated view, okay? Projecting your own negative feelings onto others, pretending that things are fine when they are clearly not, thinking that people can overcome their problems through positive thinking, thinking that you must rise above your emotions, using defense mechanisms such as denial and repression. Now, and then it says spiritual bypassing is a superficial way of glossing over problems in a way that might make us feel better in the short term, but ultimately solves nothing and just leaves the problem to linger on. All right. So here are a few cues that we are bypassing. All right. Some of these words: you create your own happiness. Everything happens for a reason. It was for the best. It was a blessing in disguise. Good vibes only. Thoughts and prayers. Okay. Now, some of those things I believe. Okay. I do believe that we create our own happiness. I actually do believe that. So some of these things might not be harmful on their surface. It's what we're doing with them. It's, are we doing it to avoid? Okay. Are we bypassing the things that we really, really need to look at around the infidelity, the things we really need to see, and saying it was a blessing in disguise. It was for the best because it feels better than actually facing it. Now, I have heard multiple clients of mine say, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm actually glad it happened. It woke me up. I woke up. We woke up. Our marriage, I don't know that it would have happened any other way. I don't know that we would have woken up to what we needed to see if this didn't happen. So I want you to hear that. They're not saying it was a blessing in disguise in a Pollyannish kind of way. It's very real for them. It's very real. Like, this made us grow up and look at the things that we have avoided for 20, 30, 40 years, right? So that is the distinction there. When we're saying those things, are we avoiding or are we staring it down? Are we saying them to not see, or are we saying them because we have seen and that's what's on the other side of it? Those are the questions. Instead of a platitude to make yourself feel better in your avoidance, have you stared it down? Are you looking at it, really seeing it? And then that is where you get because of the work that you've done, right? Now, spiritual bypassing, it's a form of a defense mechanism. Okay. Sometimes we just are too afraid to look at the reality of things and feel the pain of it. We don't want to feel it. We want to avoid it. And so with some of my clients, where their guys are immersing themselves in different groups or spiritual practices or things like that, that might make them feel better temporarily. But where the problem lies is that they're not taking that feeling better and turning around and going to their spouse and going in and going, I have avoided you. I have avoided this relationship, and I've avoided any kind of conflict or anything real for too long, and I'm over it. And I'm going to take these things and I'm going to bring them to the relationship that means the most to me. I'm going to bring them here. Okay. And that is where real change happens in our relationship, is when we can take those things and then translate them into action within our relationships. Okay. Now, I want to say something important. Sometimes when we are in the midst of really, really intense emotion, spiritual bypassing can be a really useful thing. When you are really distressed, it can be a way to temporarily relieve frustration or anxiety or anger, whatever it is, okay? It can be a coping mechanism in a moment of distress. I am calling out, though, when we use it in the long term as a way to avoid the things that we really need to do, all right? Here are some of the negative things that can happen when we spiritual bypass. Anxiety, blind allegiance to others because we're not really thinking about it. We're not facing the truth, the whole picture. Codependency, control problems, disregard for personal responsibility, emotional confusion, excessive tolerance of unacceptable or inappropriate behavior, feelings of shame, spiritual narcissism. Okay, spiritual narcissism involves using spiritual practices as a way to increase self-importance. It often involves using spirituality to build the individual up, while also wielding it as a weapon to tear others down. Isn't that interesting? Okay, I have also witnessed this. I witnessed it in my first marriage, where we would have some kind of conflict, and then he would go spend hours studying spiritual things, and then he'd write these things up and give them to me as kind of a way to persuade me that he was being so spiritual and that I needed to listen. Fortunately, I was onto it, and so I could see through it. But I think it bears bringing up, okay? It's a way to deny difficult emotions, right? Our emotions can be really overwhelming. And spiritual bypassing is a way to just kind of skim over. Another thing that happens with spiritual bypassing that many of you maybe have experienced is dismissing other people's emotions. It can be a tool to dismiss what other people are feeling. It can be a tool to gaslight others into staying silent about things that have harmed them, like putting a happy, positive spin on something that was not a happy, positive thing for the other person, and an inability to sit there and hear their experience because it feels threatening to you, right? That is a form of it that can be really dangerous. Avoiding responsibility. Spiritual bypassing reduces the discomfort that people feel as a result of cognitive dissonance. People feel uncomfortable when they hold to conflicting beliefs or when they behave in ways that are not in accordance with their beliefs, okay? So, for example, if you believe that you're a good person and then you have, on the other hand, something that you did that you know is like outside your integrity, really owning that in its fullness, and that you can be both people, that's this really good person and this person that did this rotten thing, can create a lot of cognitive dissonance. And so sometimes people go to the spiritual bypassing as a way to blame shift, as a way to avoid, as a way to absolve ourselves of responsibility. We can also use spiritual bypassing to judge other people. We can dismiss them and use like spiritual or scriptural references about judgment, about why people shouldn't be judging, and avoid altogether what it is they're actually saying, right? Again, we all do this in different ways, both sides of the coin with infidelity. We all do this. This is just to raise awareness of it, okay? bypassing becomes a form of victim blaming, especially in cases where people are experiencing the negative effects of various kinds of trauma. Okay. So this is telling people that they should stop being negative in order to avoid exhaustion, anxiety, depression, and other physical and psychological manifestations of stress. Is essentially telling them that they are to blame for their own pain and suffering. Okay. So the way that I view this is that rather than blaming people, like with my clients, many of them are in distress, right? Many of them are in the most difficult time in their life. I would never blame them for it. The way that I view it as this thing happened, and for most of my clients, it is traumatic for most of them. But I do believe that it is our responsibility to decide what we're going to do with it, only because it's not wise to give that over to somebody else. The person that engaged in these behaviors, they've got symptoms of their own, right? It's not healthy for us to just hand over our healing to another human being. They can help. They can help 100%. They can do things that really help our healing process in a huge way. But ultimately, we have to face it. This is not avoiding it. It's not like, come on, just buck up and get over it. It's really growing our capacity to hold more, to feel more, to process more, to grow up this part of us that wants to avoid pain. Which brings me to my next point, that spiritual bypassing really stalls out our growth. It stalls out our becoming more emotionally adult. It can, in fact, do opposite things of like making us feel superior to others. It can be a way to really stunt our own growth, to not really go into the things that we need to learn to feel, to process, skills that we need to learn, right? One example that I believe I've actually shared this before on the podcast, but it bears repeating here, is a regret that I have is when I told my first husband that I was going to be ending our marriage. It was right in front of our therapist. And I was so nervous going in, didn't know what to say, knew that it would be hurtful, of course, and I didn't want to hurt him. And I also didn't want to feel like the biggest jerk, like that I was just walking away from this family of mine, which I wasn't. I wasn't walking away from my family, but I was ending my marriage. And even though I always have been a fairly spiritual person, and I really was seeking guidance, I was seeking guidance during this time, and I did feel that I had some pretty clear guidance that I needed to go, that it was time. I used that as a way to avoid actually telling the truth. I said that God told me that I needed to end my marriage, that I needed to end it. And he did not like that. And he's like, I don't believe in a God that would encourage breaking up a family. And he was very angry. And in hindsight, I think what was more true was I, Andrea, am choosing to end this marriage. It is no longer a good place for me, a good place for our family. I am choosing this. And if I could go back, that's what I would do. That's what I would say. And I would own all of the discomfort of that, all of any anger that he might have felt at that statement, I would own it. And I know for me, I really avoided conflict. I hated it. I hated saying hard things and feeling like a jerk. And there was a lot of gaslighting that went on of, denying what my actual experience was. And so I think that some of my actions were a way to avoid some of those responses. And in reality, I wish that I would have just said what was true and let the chips fall where they may. I think that I would have respected myself more, because there was a part of me that knew that I was kind of hiding behind God rather than standing there in my own strength and my own power and my own authority and saying, I'm done and I'm leaving. So I do want to give credit to, I looked at lots of different places for different research about this topic, but one that had a lot of really good information. It was an article in Very Well Mind, and it was by someone named Kendra Cherry, MSc D. Okay, just want to give credit where credit's due. Much of what has been said is my own, but I wanted to just make sure to give credit there as well. So to sum this up, spiritual bypassing is something that is easy to do. but it generally comes from avoidance. It can even masquerade sometimes as being more virtuous than other people, putting us above other people, and not really getting to the root of what things are really happening, the things that are real. Okay? Now, I want you just to check in with yourself, see what lands, see if there's things that you are avoiding. I'm hoping that this will help you to have courage to step into your relationships and to call out what you see. If your partner is doing this, you can bring this episode. This is what this is. There's a name for it. Okay? Now, I want to invite you, if you want support, like a ton of support in growing your capacity to face what is true, join my program. Join my program. We do this a lot. Like one of the core things that you study in my program is facing truth. There's several different trainings that I have in regard to this, as well as live coaching, tons of live coaching calls where I help my clients grow their capacity to face what is truth so they can live in high integrity with themselves. There is nothing better than knowing that you are living within integrity for yourself. So if you are interested in that, you can apply to be in the program. I actually recently changed the structure of my program to application only. I want to guard who joins. It's not for everybody. It's a very high caliber group. We don't man bash. We don't criticize if somebody's staying or if somebody's leaving. It's very high level. And so it is now application only. So if you are interested in joining, you can go to the show notes and apply. You can go to my website and apply, AndreaGiles.com. And we would love to have you if the fit is right. All right. Thank you so much. I will see you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to the Heal from Infidelity podcast. If you would like to be kept in the know about upcoming free classes, new podcast episodes, and other ways of working with me, go subscribe to my weekly email. You can subscribe at AndreaGiles.com/lies-about-infidelity/. Again, it's AndreaGiles.com/lies-about-infidelity/. I will see you next time.